the real estate sector is in pain is an understatement. Stalled projects, inventory piling up, drop in demand and developers going bust. In a big move though, the finance minister has now announced some relief, at least for home buyers who've put in money in their dream home and are paying EMIs, but their homes are far from completion. In some cases, projects have been stalled for a decade. Now, a fund of 25,000 crore rupees will be used to help developers stuck at the very last mile of completion in their projects. An earlier condition that this benefit will be extended only to non-NPA, non-NCLT projects has now been removed. KK Mistry, CEO of HDFC, is joining me now. Mr. Mistry, very good evening to you. The prime difference between what the finance minister has said today and what was announced as far as the real estate fund is concerned about a month ago is that the non-NPA, non-NCLT conditionality has been removed. Now, this fund will help projects which are in the NPA bracket or in the NCLT process. Do you think that makes a big difference?
I think it makes a big difference. This is something which we had said at the time when the announcement was originally made. Because what you need to understand is that when a project is stressed, it is stressed because of lack of money. Now, lack of money will logically result in the loan which has been taken for the project becoming an NPA and the books of whoever has lent that money. So if you exclude such projects, then you are excluding a very large component of projects which are stressed. So I think this move of including NPA accounts and NCLT, cases which have been referred to NCLT within the gamut of the fund is a very positive move.
Right. Now, let's talk about the size of the fund, Mr. Mistry. Now, the government as the sponsor, and what I'm seeing from the official press release, will put in effectively 10,000 crore rupees in this category 2 alternative investment fund. LIC and SBI will put in another 15, one assumes, so the initial fund will be 25,000 rupees. Sovereign funds will be allowed to put in at a later stage. Looking at the extent of the logjam, we're talking about 4.58 lakh units which are stalled. How far will this 25,000 crore rupees initially go?
I think it is definitely a first step. It will go to some extent a long way in clearing some of the number of projects. You see, there are several projects across the country which are stuck because of last mile funding. And the amount of money they require, some of these projects, at least is not very large. You need 30 crore, 50 crore, 70 crore, 100 crore, something like that. So if you have a fund size of 25,000 crores, it can take care of a lot of such projects, small size projects.
What about the whole mechanism that has been described, Mr. Mistry, especially when we speak about, these funds going into an escrow account? SBI caps will be monitoring right now and also deciding who gets how much. And in a staggered format and formation. Do you think this is a mechanism that works?
Well, we'll have to understand the mechanism a little better.
Yeah.
But very clearly, any money which goes into a stressed real estate project has to be closely monitored in terms of end use of that money. The money has to go specifically into paying, money for buying cement or buying steel or paying for labor or whatever else. So it cannot just be arbitrarily given in a lump sum to the developer to do what he likes. So the monitoring the project is very important. Now, the exact process of how that monitoring will happen is something which I'm sure that detailed guidelines will show.
To discuss the impact of this move and to take a deep dive into the state of the real estate sector, I'm joined today by Geetambar Anand, CMD of the ATS Group, Anuj Puri, Chairman of Anarok Property Consultants, Rohit Raj Modi, Director of Ashiana Homes, and Gaurav Karnik, National Leader Real Estate at EY India. Welcome to all of you and thank you for speaking with us. Mr. Anand, let's start with a quick response first on, the big change in conditionality that the Finance Minister has announced today. And we knew this fund was there, but now you've extended it. Is it going to be easy now to extend this to non-NPA, non-NCLT? Does that come with its own set of problems?
So first and foremost, I must appreciate the fact that the government, once they made the initial announcement, when they realized that there are these two deal breakers, the NPA and NCLT issues, they responded very quickly, interacting with industry, with bankers, and they made this change. This is very, very, I think it's a huge thing. We must appreciate this. Coming to what you just asked, I think when Mr. Mistry was speaking, he made a very important, pertinent point. The RBI needs to step in to look at these small nitty-gritties. When a new fund comes into an NPA account, they also have to make provisioning within their balance sheets because they are also classified as an NPA, entering into an NPA account. So this can only be done, this small change can only be made by the RBI, and they need to now do their bit once the government has done its bit for this fund to be deployed into such projects. So that being said, the NCLT issue is also no longer an issue, and this will be a great help to the AIF to actually decide and deploy money into these accounts. There's one small ask which I think industry will still go back to the ministry with, and that is the ceiling of a price of 2 crores in the MMR region and 1.5 crore rupees per unit in the NCR region. This would mean that the projects such as the JP project would not really qualify because they do have inventory which is stalled, which would of course have been sold at prices above 1.5 crores. So all the small tweaking that can be done is that a certain percentage, let's say 95% of the inventory is below 1.5 crores or 2 crores, or 5% is above that, then also you are eligible to get this money. So this small fact would enable even stalled projects like the JP project in the NCR.
Yes, but we have to look at the, and I use this word judiciously, we have to look at the moral hazard in this. You aren't going to be able to bail out luxury projects. Anuj Puri, I see you responding there, so please come in. I mean, you can get away with saying that I'm helping small buyers stuck in affordable housing projects. But I don't think the government can start bailing out luxury projects as much as, everyone's pain is equal if their money is stuck, but even so.
So Tamanna, it is a fantastic move by the government, and I really think is that it's very well thought the way that this was made, the announcement. It's the first time that the RBI has also come onto the table, and the Honorable Finance Minister did refer to that, because it is a joint effort by the Finance Ministry and the RBI to be able to resolve, because NCLT and NPA falls in the domain of the RBI. So I do feel is that there has been a lot of thought, as Gitambar said, behind this. Clearly, I feel is that 2 crores and 1.5 crores is very well thought. As Gitambar said, is that maybe 90-95% of the projects will fall within that domain. I think largely this will address the problem that we have in the NCR region. And clearly the sentiment that was really getting negative by the home buyers who were sitting on these stalled projects, and as you rightly said in your opening remarks, paying mortgage on one side and paying the rent on the other side with no visibility of home getting delivered, will now have the hope that this home will get delivered through this project. I think there is one other fine print that the Finance Minister said, and I do endorse that fine print, is that the project has to be net worth positive. And clearly the government is giving this money as debt onto the project with the intent that they want the money back. It is not a bailout to the developer, saying is that if the project is even net worth negative, we are going to give the money to you. The project has to have more money that they can get out of that project than what is being put by the government, and those are the projects that will classify, which I think will clean out a large problem that we are having within the industry of the 4.58 lakh units. Majority of that will get flushed out through this issue. The other positive thing that the Finance Minister said is that this fund is an open-ended fund, and there will be other sovereign funds who will be able to invest in it, and 25,000 crores is the initial kitty with which they are starting. Hopefully this will continue to swell.
Let's come to that hopeful part. Gaurav Karnik, 25,000 crores right now seems like a drop in the ocean. That too, if I'm seeing the official press release, it talks about 10,000 crore rupees that the government of India will put as the sponsor. So 25,000 crore rupees, the remainder is coming from LIC and SBI right now. Can you give us an idea of versus the demand and the need and size of stalled projects, how far will this 25,000 crore rupees go? And will sovereign funds have to see some extent of profitability to actually want to come in?
Yeah, I think the 25,000 crores may sound a small amount, looking at the whole problem. But as correctly pointed out by the finance minister, this is basically, money which is going to be used last mile funding and will end up, creating, projects to be completed. This should really, bring about impetus in the market as well as bring more confidence back to the home buyers. So I think 25,000 crores, which may sound small at the moment, will actually grow. And I think even this amount, when it's put into the market, should really help to restart and kickstart the real estate sector. If you look at investors other than LIC, SBI, and the government, which is already putting in money, and if you're going to look at sovereign wealth funds to come and put money or any other pension funds, obviously this money will come with a return expectation. And I think the finance minister in her speech, also in her briefing, also said that this is money which will have a return, and this is not just money which is coming out without any return on it. Secondly, this is going to be professionally managed. This projects will be, not all projects will be given money. This will be somebody who's going to evaluate it, and the money will not be put in lump sum. And in fact, it's actually going to be used for last mile construction funding. So the builder will have to give a plan, and accordingly will get money from the escrow account. So to answer your second question, there will be a return expectation, and I don't think any investor will put it without any return expectation.
So what is the return expectation, Rohit Raj? Just, if you can come to this, also giving us a sense of where the real estate sector is right now. We wanted to start out this conversation talking about the state of the real estate sector, which is honestly dismal. How big a part of the problem is the stalled project?
So, clearly today the government of India has taken cognizance of the deep malaise that's running through the real estate sector, and this particular announcement, and with the clarity that it has been made, is definitely a huge confidence booster. Now, having said that, I want to come back to your previous point that the return expectation. One has normally seen that the overseas funds with the last mile funding, their expectations of return are upwards of 20% IRR. And if we are hoping that funds would come in with this kind of IRR expectation, then I think it would we won't be adding much to that kitty. I'm sorry to be a party pooper over here. Having also to add what Mr. Mistry was talking about, it is very, very imperative that the banks and the NBFCs, which have already lent to the housing projects, only if they are allowed to restructure one time without classifying that loan as NPA, maybe for a limited window, they would be willing to provide liquidity to worthy projects which are net worth positive. And this is something which can happen rather quickly. My other concern or request would be that this entire AIF fund that is being set up needs to be made operationalized very quickly, because we are clearly running against time as far as the housing sector is concerned here.
Yeah, let me get some responses to some of the points Rohit Raj Modi made, and some important ones there. Mr. Anand, do you want to come in? Why will sovereign funds find this attractive? Where are the returns going to come from? And this net worth positive, how much does that narrow down the pool of projects which are then eligible?
So I'll tell you this, that most of the projects which are stalled, I would say more than 95% of them would be net worth positive, except for, you see, in Noida there's a different problem, because the land payment which has been, which the authorities are asking to be made, has to be rationalized because of certain disruptions in the business over here, the farmer agitation where you couldn't get your land, there was not, probably, in your project there was some land which was not acquired. So therefore, there has to be a rationalization. There was the NGT stay on occupation certificates. So once the land prices are rationalized, most of the projects will be net worth positive, so that's not an issue. Now, sovereign funds will come in after the 25,000 crore, which has already been deployed, 10,000 from the government and 15,000 from LIC and SBI caps. So we feel like, again taking from what Mr. Mistry said, what happens here is, in a stalled project, people who have bought into a project stop paying the installments once they see the construction stop, which is right. I mean, it's rightly so. Once the project starts again with this money coming in from the stress fund, which may, and this initial 25,000 crores should not be at IRRs upward of, I think, even a coupon of about 12 or 13 maximum.
Right.
Once the construction starts, the sold inventory, people who have stopped paying installments start paying the money. So maybe the requirement of funds, if there are sold receivables of 100 crores, for 100 crores in the project, and you pump in 15 to start the construction and get the wheel rolling, this 100 crores of sold receivables starts coming into the project, and the unsold inventory also starts moving. Because don't forget, the project has to be 50% complete. That's what the cabinet has decided. So therefore, I don't see such a big amount of money being required, because we did a small dipstick in the Noida region, and to actually kickstart the entire region over here with all these stalled projects, we leave the JP and the Unitech projects aside, and the Amrapali projects, the three big ones.
Yeah.
If those are left aside, then we don't need more than about 2,500 crores to kickstart the projects.
Right.
So I would be very, very optimistic, but like Rohit said, what is required here is a speed in decision making, and a greater speed in deployment of the fund to start the work at the stall project.
No, so the hope is that this project will give people confidence to start buying again, which would then solve the problem of unsold inventory. But that assumes, Mr. Puri, I'm coming to you. Anuj, that assumes people are not buying. Okay, yes, Mr. Anand, yes.
No. There is inventory which is already sold in these projects. That's why
that I know,
there are these home buyers who are actually stuck. So these home buyers at some point in, so they stop paying their they stop paying their installments once they saw that the work has stopped.
Right.
They stop paying further installments.
Yes.
So once they see that the work has started again,
they
will start paying that money,
No.
which is called sold receivables.
I
and
understand,
the projects
Mr. Anand. I'm trying to make a broader point, if you bear with me. I'm trying to make a broader point, taking off also from what the finance minister said earlier in her press conference, that this is also a move which is hoped will uplift the sentiment across the industry. And of course, it will help those who have already bought projects, stalled, etc. They will pay money, and I get your point. Anuj, my question is, what about the rest? Because unsold inventory and skyrocketing inventory is also a problem that hasn't seen a drop in prices to that proportion. So there hasn't been a proportionate drop in prices. We're going through an overall economic slowdown right now where consumption and demand is anyway dampened. So let's talk a bit about those issues as well, because this addresses people who've already put down money and are stuck. But the hope is that it gives confidence to others to actually start looking at,
I agree with that.
Projects, unfinished projects again.
You're absolutely right. So, there are two questions that I wanted to really respond to. One, what Rohit rightly answered, that the expectation of the private equity today on the last mile funding is 20%. But I do feel is, with the sovereign guarantee and these funds really coming at the top of the pyramid, with the cover that will be provided, I think they would perhaps look at a LIBOR plus 4 or 5%. So as Gitambar said, is maybe between 11 to 12% is what the expectation of these sovereigns will be, given that they have a huge amount of cover. I certainly don't think that the expectation will, exceed that, because the project viability will just disappear. Second, you're absolutely right, is that this will bring in a huge amount of confidence on the projects that are under construction. We are clearly seeing today that the confidence in the buyer is going down, because they are saying as if the project does get stalled, which is what has happened in many of the cases, what happens to those projects? How do we get bailed out? And that's where the thought is that should we buy the project once it gets completed? And this, to my mind, will bring in a huge amount of relief to the developer community, because under construction projects will get in the confidence from the home buyers to say as well, there is a mechanism the government thought through, and there is this AIF fund which can actually ensure that if the project does have a deficit cash flow, yet it is net worth positive, the government will be able to bring in the money from the AIF and you will be able to complete the project. So you're bang on that point.
I mean, I'm not so sure about that.
There is going to be a huge amount of confidence lifter, sentiment booster.
Let me get Gaurav in on that. Let me get Gaurav in on that. Do you think that this will be the sort of confidence builder to look at under construction projects again, because there are other factors. You need that kind of consumer confidence to also commit possibly to an EMI, etc.
Yeah, so I mean, from a general perspective, though, the economies are going through a slowdown, and there's consumers are pretty shaken by it. But like Gitambar said, like Anuj said, this sort of a start on these projects, on incomplete projects, to get them completed, will definitely give prospective home buyers a positive sense on these projects. And I do feel that once they see that there is a possibility that these stalled projects can always be picked up by the AIF and given last mile funding if the project reaches that point of such a state, I think that will definitely give them confidence that they can get into new projects, as well as into those sort of projects which have unsold inventory. I think the second part which I would like to also put is that though this AIF is coming on top of the capital stack, it must be ensured that if the IBC proceedings come back, they don't get treated as all the rest of the creditors. So I think that's another tweak that may be required to be put in.
All right. Okay. Let me get a quick word here from Rohit. And as we wrap this, I just want to take this to a bigger question, which is what else? What else now is required from the government to boost the industry as a whole? This solves the problem of stalled projects for home buyers to some extent, but the problems are broader, and finance is a big part of them for developers, isn't it?
Sure. I would just make 2 points about that.
Yeah.
One is that our government has been adequately addressing the supply side issues, and if the RBI would consider allowing that one-time window for restructuring without classification as NPA, that would help a great deal. A lot of this money would not be needed actually, because the banks and NBFCs would be able to fund that. That's number one. Secondly, the demand creation, demand simulation that you just raised. If we can provide a limited window, let's say till March 2020, to all those home buyers who come in and pick up a housing right now, and we give them, let's say, a rebate of up to 10 lakh rupees on the interest that they pay per annum on their mortgage, something like that is going to actually stir the demand. At the end of the day, we require demand to be created. Only when the new buyers will come in the market that we will see the inventory taking off. And that is one thing that I think is badly needed to change the sentiment in the market.
Well, let's hope there's more coming, and whether this is just some of it pushed by sentiment, which is the drop in demand. Let's see if prices also follow that same pattern and show a kind of a drop, which will give a greater impetus to buyers to come in. But a big start for the real estate sector, and especially for the person who has bought his or her house, is paying an EMI, has found themselves stranded and stuck. This will come as a sigh of relief. I want to thank all of you for joining us on the first debate this evening on the India Development Debate. We'll be right back where we're talking about Maharashtra. It's tick, time is ticking for the government to be formed. The assembly lapses on the 9th of November. Are we going to stare at a constitutional crisis if the BJP and the Sena don't make up? The Sena is showing no signs of budging so far. What's going on in Maharashtra? That political analysis coming up next. Don't go away.